Hello, I'm William King. Welcome to Responders, a look at the emergency services on the Isle of Man. Over the course of 4 programmes, we'll be looking at government-run organisations and charities supporting their work to try and bring you closer to the emergency services which are operating on our island. In this first episode, we're taking a look at a government-run body which employs 2 full-time staff and around 80 volunteers, the Isle of Man Coastguard. Then later on, we'll be hearing from the Douglas arm of the Royal National Lifeboat Institution. There is a difference between the Coastguard and the RNLI, and to explain, here's Edd Christian, a coxswain at the Douglas RNLI.
So the Coastguard is a government-funded organisation on the island, as is Her Majesty's Coastguard as well in the UK. And we are a charity, so we respond to their tasking requests. Everything about this organisation has no government funding whatsoever, so we can be self-sufficient, even down to the fuel. So if government then decide to withdraw funding from something, then it would put the service in some jeopardy. But we, as a charity, are 100% funded by voluntary contributions.
We'll hear more from Edd Christian a little later on. A few weeks ago, I went along to a training session of the Peel Coastguard, where I began by speaking to Kevin Scott, the rescue teams manager.
The core of the Isle of Man Coastguard is 5 rescue teams based around the island at Castletown, Douglas, Peel, Port Erin and Ramsey. Those teams are made up of volunteers, and there's myself and my colleague who are the full-timers. My role is to manage the teams and head up the service, and obviously just train the guys. We do 2 training exercises every month for each team, and we cover rope rescue, water rescue, search, and then other things like first aid, driving skills, off-road driving, all sorts really.
How often would you say the Coastguard gets calls and has to go out in emergency situations?
We normally get in the region of 300 calls a year. We're coordinated by the Marine Operations Centre at the Sea Terminal. They'll deal with anything up to about 450 incidents a year. Not all of them will require Coastguard getting turned out, but about 300 incidents a year.
When did you first get involved in the Coastguard?
Okay, so I was a volunteer with Castletown team for 10 years. And I've been in my current role for 3 years.
And have you any standout memories of that time?
One rescue where initially it started off as a dog rescue, but turned into rescuing the owner as well, as they tried to rescue their pet first. Other than that, another fun one was a seal rescue. We helped the MSPCA. A seal had been reared from a pup by the MSPCA. So it was very fit and healthy. They released it. Unfortunately, where they released it was a tidal pool, and the tide wasn't quite reaching it. So we had to try and catch this extremely fit and healthy seal, and that gave us the runaround with the MSPCA for some time.
All right. Thank you all for coming. Tonight's exercise, we're going to do a couple of cliff drops, dropping down into Fenella Beach. I'll be OIC, Mark will be driver hitched. First drop will be Anthony as technician. Do you want to take someone down with you?
So what does OIC mean?
Right, officer in charge.
Right, okay.
So there's probably all sorts of acronyms there.
That's good, good.
Yeah. ESO is Edge Safety Officer, so I can explain what that is once we're out there.
I can make a guess about what edge might be referring to.
Yeah, so obviously the cliff edge. Yeah, so obviously we have a danger zone where there's a risk of fall. Only people in a harness and tethered are allowed in that. And the Edge Safety Officer controls that zone and is also the eyes and ears to look over the cliff.
Hiya, Marie. So how long have you been volunteering with the Coastguard?
About 4 years now. Or was it 5? 5 years now, yeah.
Very good. And what sorts of call-outs have you been involved with in that time?
Dogs gone missing, people missing, searches. What else? Oh, sheep over cliffs.
Why do you take part in the Coastguard?
Just to help people out, and it's exciting. Gives me a bit more confidence and gives something back to the community.
So we've just got to the top of the hill above Fenella Beach, and the team are all putting up poles hammering them into the ground and putting on their harnesses, by the looks of things.
Mark Ledley, I'm Deputy Station Officer for Peel.
What I can see here is what looks like some big tent pegs and some ropes. What is that actually called?
This is called our holdfast.
Okay.
You have 2 steel pins which are driven into the ground about 3-4 foot apart, and that creates the holdfast, a secure fixing point so that we can tie all our technicians and all our lines to, and we're not sort of relying on tying it to fence posts or anything like that. So we have all our own kit, and we know that this will take the weight of a technician and a casualty.
So how many crew members are going to be going over the edge of the cliff today?
Over the edge we'll have, I think we're going to have 1 technician, which is what in the old days we used to call a cliff man, but it's called a technician now. We have a technique we call paramedic assist. So say we have a casualty at the bottom of the cliff, and we have a paramedic which needs to get down to him. Obviously the paramedics have enough to do without having to learn how to use all of our equipment. So they have the same harnesses as we do, and we attach the paramedic, clip them onto our harness, and then we take them down. So they don't have to learn about how to go over the cliff, we take them over. So that's what we'll be doing today, is a paramedic assist. And at the top of the cliff with the quad pod, we have 2 edge safety officers.
So what is a quad pod?
It's a tripod with 4 legs.
I see. Right, yeah. It's
and
sort of a black...
Basically, what that does is it extends on the legs, and it provides a higher point for the lines to go through and over. So rather than the lines going over the cliff edge at your feet, you are then trying to struggle to get over. The point that your weight is actually higher than you are.
We've got 2 people sat at the
holdfast.
A good few feet up the top of the head, and so these people are the ones controlling how fast
the technician goes down. Yes.
And then what about coming back up?
When they come back up, we have a winch which you can see getting set up just there. That'll be, I don't know if it's been fired up, but usually we fire it up just to give it a test run and warm it up a little bit. That goes into place and is put onto the main line, and then it's a rolling winch, and it'll just winch the casualty and the technician back up the cliff.
So where else do you do your training? We're up the top of Peel Hill here.
Yes, we train further around the back as well, where there's some old quarries, which gives you a much bigger drop. This is kind of like it's only about a 20 to 30 foot, well, it's about a 30 foot drop. Mm-hmm. So this is ideal for training because it's quick and easy and we can drive to it. But we have other sections around the back there where quarries, where you have a much steeper drop. And then we also have another drop from the Queenie Sip Road dropping down to the sea. So that's a long drop, so that's quite good. And also we train over by the old baths in Peel. This is Caelan.
Hi Caelan. Hi Alex.
Lock off main, down safety.
Down safety. Down main.
No, lock off main.
Oh, sorry.
Hold fast, technician 1, down main, down safety, over.
Down main, down safety.
That's the command to then let both of the lines go. And the girls are keeping an eye on each other to make sure that both lines are going out at a similar speed.
Is it all going to plan so far?
So far so good. Yep. We're not letting them out too fast, I hope.
How will you know when it's time to stop?
We'll get a command from the technician. He'll radio up to us at Holdfast and tell us to stop.
Any one of the team can say stop if they see anything that they're not too sure on at any time. We can check it out, and then the OIC can restart again. Or the technician, when he's reached the point he needs to reach, he'll put a stop in there.
Stop.
Safety locked
Hold
out.
fast, technician 1, for the purpose of the exercise, we're at the base of the cliff and on safe footing, over.
We do that on the radio commands as well. We put for the purpose of exercise. That is in case the message is broken up, because we're in VHF radio, so it's transmitted around the Irish Sea. Somebody may hear us saying, "Oh, I've reached the casualty," or blah blah blah, and they kind of, "Oh, is it an emergency?" So we put in for the purpose of exercise, and then anyone listening in can think that it's not actually a real scenario.
Technician 1,
You should go and just restart it.
we're ready for recovery now, over.
You doing it?
Hold fast.
So that's the winch being powered up there. It's a Honda. We can just see the... And now they're visible. The winch stops. As the noise of the sea takes over. And here they are, safely recovered.
So that was good, very good, considering we've had a 4-month break. Just a couple of things on the commands.
Frank, how long have you been working with the Coastguard for?
I'm in my 13th year now.
And so you've just gone over the edge of the cliff as part of the training. Not the first time, I presume.
No, I do normally go over by myself, but what we just did there was I was the paramedic to go through how we harness up and how we take them down.
So what's going through your head when you're going over that cliff? Are you know that it's totally safe, or are you thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen?
No, we have strict training regime, so we know, we trust the gear. At the end of the day, we all rely on each other for this. We've got people lowering us down from the top. I was connected to the guy when I went down. So yeah, it's a good team environment. You've got to have the personality where you talk and reassurance to people, which I've always had anyway.
Yeah. So
it's a case of just, hold on till I tell you to let go and just trust me. I'm just going to get you safe on this now. Because if they don't trust you, then you've got a big problem down there.
Yeah.
And the main thing is, it's when we're fitting the gear, I'm saying about it being quite tactile, you're putting the harness up through people's crutch as well. So you're just explaining, I'm just going to drop this down and I'm going to swing it back up and fasten it, and don't just sort of wade in and not explain what you're doing.
We leave the Peel Coastguard team as they undertake a new training experience. They've done it once before in March, before, you might remember, a pandemic got in the way of that, and they stopped all their training. So what they're doing now, it's going to be more realistic, because they're going to go down without so much equipment. The quad pod won't be there, because that's a realistic scenario. So somebody's going to go down, be with the casualty, at which point they'll introduce the quad pod and somebody else will go down to bring them back up again. If you want to know how that's done, or anything more about that, I'm sure if you found a member of the Peel Coastguard, they would more than happily talk you through it. They're a great, friendly group of people, and I've had a really good time this evening with them. As we've heard, the Coastguard often work closely with the RNLI, and in Douglas we have the founding station. For a little information, here's a clip of Heroes of the Sea, a Channel television production from 1994.
At Douglas, Isle of Man, a tower of refuge was built in the bay, where shipwrecked sailors could shelter. It was Sir William Hillary who put up much of the money to build the tower. Hillary was a man of ideals and energy, who had the determination to see his vision transformed into reality. He'd come to live in this house overlooking Douglas Bay after a life of travel and adventure, and his questing spirit led him to become an active member of the local lifeboat crew. But he did even more. Sir William's pamphlets and projects were legion. Not all of them bore fruit, but this one certainly did. There was an outburst of enthusiasm at the birth of what became the Royal National Lifeboat Institution, and a number of new lifeboat designs were promptly suggested.
I went along to see Edd Christian, a coxswain at the Douglas RNLI, and he started by showing me around.
It's temporary at the moment, obviously, because we don't know what's happening really with the boathouse, because we're getting a new boat, but we don't know when it's coming. So, brand new Helly Hansen kit. Each kit's about £1,000.
Okay, bit bright yellow jackets.
Yeah, I started in 2011 in Ramsey. Dad's just a mechanic up there. My uncle was the second coxswain. He's now the lifeboat operations manager for Ramsey. And then I moved to Douglas and continued my progression up to coxswain level, which is a year. It'll be a year on Friday I've been a coxswain, so let's just keep it short. Well, some lights in here. So this is the boat. It's a Mersey class lifeboat. It's just the phone now.
Oh, I see.
Everything that we need is on this boat. We've got things like drogues in there, casualty drogues. If a casualty's got a steering issue, we can tow them straight. When you come in, just go backwards down the ladder.
I know, it feels quite compact in here.
It is compact.
How many people would you have in here?
In here, 6 probably. So you've got a radar operator, navigator, helm, coxswain seat, and a crew seat, and then the seat behind, it's called a doctor's seat basically. It's just a bit of a name for it, so we can take someone if we need to. Yeah. It was 1 or 2. You'll see there's a clip here for a stretcher, so we can work on someone in here.
I see, right. Okay.
So just in here we've got the twin engines, all the spares that we may need to do quick repairs. Some stuff you can't repair, but
do you ever have to do that when you're out on a job?
Yeah, I've seen an engine thrower belt at sea.
How fast are you going then when you're...
These boats are capable of about 15 knots, which isn't very fast in the grand scheme of things. But the new Shannon's up to about 27, 28 knots, about the same speed as Manannan. This will go about the same speed as a Ben McGree. And in here is our survivor's cabin. Just mind your head. So what happens, you receive a 999 call to the SJCR, and they'll put that call for a Coastguard straight through to the Marine Operations Centre. The Marine Operations Centre here at the sea terminal will then task a Coastguard asset if it's someone on the rocks or someone close by, and they'll also call Belfast Coastguard. Belfast Coastguard will then call our launch authority or deputy launch authority, who will say, "Okay, I'll speak to the coxswain. Yes or no, we'll go." They are the decision of whether we go or not. 9.9 times out of 10 they'll say we'll launch. They'll then call the coxswain and just discuss it with them, and the coxswain will say we'll mobilise with one of 3 different pages. So we've got an immediate launch, or launch ALB, which is a life or death situation, someone's in the water. An immediate readiness, which is we're going to be going to sea, but there's not quite as much of an urgency to get here. Or crew assemble. Crew assemble will be used for something like a long tow, which is maybe 20-30 miles away, and there's absolutely no risk to life. So the crew do not need to rush down and get here. At that point, it'd assemble the crew. The coxswain would choose their crew based on what they were going to. They'd probably just speak to Belfast Coastguard again on the phone just to check if there's any updates or anything like that.
So how come that goes through Belfast?
It's just the Coastguard area. So it used to be Liverpool Coastguard here. They closed that station. It's because the Marine Operations Centre and runs the Isle of Man Coastguard, but all our tasking requests come from Her Majesty's Coastguard. So it's just that little bit of jurisdiction change there. It doesn't delay anything particularly, but it's just they've got access to their search planning, something called SARIS, which detects where people may have drifted to if they're in the water, or it's a little bit more complex. And they can also task us other assets like other lifeboats or search and rescue helicopters from Wales or Dublin.
So how quickly then, you've decided you need to get a crew out, maybe it's immediate, how long will that take?
We aim to get the boat in the water within 30 minutes, but it can be achieved in 10 minutes. It just depends where crew are around the town. We're quite lucky really, because we're on a slip, so as soon as we've got the boat out and onto the slip and the aerials are up, we can pretty much go. Places like Ramsey and Peel may have quite a lot of beach to run down depending on the state of tide, because they're carriage launched. Port St Mary would be quite quick to launch as well because they're afloat. Port Erin are on a slipway like ours as well. So I think we could get the boat in the water within 15 minutes of that pager going off. Okay. Yeah, quite reasonably, but it's normally between 15, 20, 25 minutes depending on what's going on and the urgency.
Yeah, and I did see on your board it said something about the new Douglas Road layout might have a bit of an impact on that.
Yeah, exactly, because some of our crew live in Onchan, so they've now got to come down Governor's Road around that. They can't drop onto Broadway, so they've literally got to go through town now, which could add 5 minutes, or peak times, around school closing time, it could add 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah. Is that a big worry?
I it's just the road issues at the moment are, it's not as straightforward to get to the station as it could be, and it's not going to delay a lot massively, but it could have an impact on someone that's maybe in the water and it's a life or death situation, boat sinking in the bay or something like that. We're always going to be able to launch, there's no issues with that, but it may delay it by a couple of minutes just because of the road layout more than anything. Chances are most of our calls out are at night anyway, so it wouldn't have a massive issue.
How many of them would you say were at night?
I'd say it's probably 50-50, 60-40 split. Yeah. Say, for example, someone's gone out in their boat and they're overdue, there's always a delay in someone calling for help. Yeah. So, say, for example, they've not returned, they'll leave it an hour maybe and say, still give them an hour, might not be, might just have, be enjoying themselves, and then the delay that's the delay there. So say for example they were due back at 8 and then you start losing light at 9 and then you end up going out at night. It's very hard to spot someone in the water in the day, so at night it's even more challenging. It just makes searches more intense, lowers their search area down basically, so you're doing a lot more smaller searches in the area.
Once you're all in the boat, you're on the water, presumably everybody's got their own job and everybody knows what they've got to do, but ultimately you're still part of a team. Yeah,
sure. So the coxswain that oversees asks the crew what to do, what they need to do or what they would like them to do, but you've got to have a navigator, you've got someone that's operating the radar. The coxswain doesn't have to drive the boat, someone else can do that. Are you the coxswain? I'm a coxswain down here, there's 3 of us. So the coxswain doesn't necessarily have to drive the boat, someone can do that, and it gives the coxswain a chance to oversee and work things out and work with the Coastguard, work with the mechanic, work with the navigator. And then coxswain basically just close quarters things when you're coming alongside a boat.
You said you've been doing this since 2011? Yeah, so about 9 years.
Yeah, nearly 10 years, yeah.
Do you remember the first time you were on the boat?
Yeah, it was just a simple little tow, maybe a 5 or 6 mile tow back to Ramsey. But I remember my first job as a coxswain was the same, but that was it was a 30-mile tow, so it was good. It was a nice one to break into, yeah. And that was literally, I think it was 4 days after I passed out as a coxswain, my first job came in, so it was good. It was nice to get that job quickly, so I didn't have any really big nerves about it coming. But yeah, it's a nice responsibility to have. You've got to look after your crew and your boat first, and then close second look after your casualty. So yeah, it's a big responsibility to be in command of this. This was £600,000, this boat in 1990s. So in today's money, you're probably looking at well over £1 million. The new replacement for these boats is £1.5 million. Yeah. So it's quite a big responsibility. Yeah.
Are you risking your lives when you go out?
Yeah, of course. I think it's safe to say that every time you go to sea, you're probably risking your life. It could be a flat calm day and something could go wrong. I wouldn't put the crew in any danger, but obviously if you needed to get somewhere or do something and you got there and it was too dangerous, you'd have to look for other options. There's a lot of risk versus benefit scenarios that run through at a command level, and if something is too dangerous to attempt, you'd have to reevaluate and look at doing something else, maybe getting another unit to help you or a helicopter. You're just constantly risk assessing all the time.
And what do you think the public view of the RNLI is like? I mean, I would say it was pretty good, with the lifeboat days and stuff, for example.
Yeah, generally we're really, really well supported. The RNLI is one of the top 10 charities in the UK. It's a great charity, they look after the crew, they look after the boats, big support networks, fundraising, legacies, and then the community safety aspect of things, so the preventative measures that put in, the youth education, lifeguards. It's a big organisation. Yeah. It's well funded and well received as well.
Edd Christian there of the Douglas RNLI. Thanks very much to him, the Peel Coastguard and Channel Television. I'll be back next week.